And I'm making plans, Dave. Like I mean, I've retired a couple of times already, you know. So where am I going to go? Am I going to retire a third time? No, I'm going back into life. I'm going back in there kicking.
How, how did you find the carnivore diet?
Well, Dave, I was always an active guy, had an active job, and even when I had an office-based job for a good many years, I still maintained my activity through gyms and health clubs, fitness, etc., fitness activities. But upon arriving at like my late 50s, after the age of about 55 or thereabouts, my activity decreased a little bit, as just one normally does at that age, I suspect. And I started to take life a little easier. I became semi-retired. I traveled around to different places, different countries for a couple of years. And when I hit 58, I noticed for the first time that I had gained quite a considerable amount of weight. Now, I was a fat person. Okay, and, a fat person doesn't know that they're fat, in my humble opinion. Um, but they do recognize that there may be something to be taken care of. But the scales may say 110 kilos, for example, in the morning when one weighs oneself. But that's only the scales, and what does that know? I mean, I don't feel particularly bad about myself. I look in the mirror and maybe there's a little bit of weight there. It's not something that would affect, it's not something that affects me. And it didn't affect me actually, but I was 110 kilos. And that's not my normal weight by any means. It's 30 plus kilos over my normal average weight. So it didn't affect me, Dave, as I said, for a year or two until I came to about 60 years old. And I'm 66 today, so that's just to clarify the situation on that. When I got to about 60, I noticed that I was experiencing acid reflux at night. And similarly, at night, I used to wake uh, with sleep apnea. Now, sleep apnea to the sophisticated person would be described as snoring. The loud snoring is sleep apnea. But these two conditions, they perplexed me for a little while. And I decided at the end of I think 2018 or thereabouts, to go for 2017, 2018, to go for a full medical checkup, which is recommended that one does after a certain age, like it's around the 60 age mark onwards. So I went to my local doctor, quite good practice, whom I had contact with in the past. And I did a full medical. My doctor weighed me at 110 kilos. She suggested to me that I lose weight by reducing calories and move more, get the old formula. So I adopted that. I took it on board, but I inquired before I left the office as to how do you suggest that I reduce calories. So she presented me with uh, an app for the telephone at the time, and the app was a calorie counter. And said to me, recommended it to me personally because she told me that she had used this app herself to lose a little bit of weight. Now she looked quite slim as far as I can remember, but it was recommended to me on a personal as well as professional level. So I took it on board. Dave, looking at the backs of cans of beans and packets to find out their calorie content it's a bit difficult. I mean, I'm not the most patient of men when it comes to that uh, practice, but notwithstanding that, I tried it for a couple of months, maybe 8 or 10 weeks, and I did find that I could manage it. I could manage the app, not a difficulty really. I mean, I'm quite numerous professionally, and in the past, I'm good at numbers, etc. So I didn't have a difficulty there, but it didn't seem to really click. It didn't seem to catch. As for the move more part, well, I considered going back to the gym, but really at 60, I didn't really feel up to the energy level to lift enormous weights. And I didn't really, it didn't really attract me, the idea of that. But I tried swimming. I was a member of a club, and there was a pool and a sauna, and I tried those activities, swimming, and I had a bike. I used to cycle. I did a lot of cycling actually at that time. But Dave, I was cycling with 110 kilos, all the time, more or less. I mean, my app, I lost 5 kilos, and then I put it all back on very quickly again when I stopped using the app. So there had to be something more, Dave, there had to be a better way, an easier way uh, to achieve a healthy, at least a healthy weight, which would eliminate the conditions that I seem to be developing. And I know this is a very common story for people of my then age, but at the same time, this is my personal journey through all of that through carnivore. So I decided to check a little bit more, and Google is a great thing. Uh, Google, Father Google, or Mummy Google, run to Mummy Google and do some research. So I checked out a glycemic index, the glycemic index for food. And an apple has so much, an orange has so much, and the legume has so many. The sugar content, reducing the sugar. I focused myself on sugar reduction actually at the time. Now, I was never a sugar addict that I knew of, but it was obviously in the carb content that I was eating at the time that I didn't really pay any attention to. My 3 meals a day that one must have a good breakfast, which is your main meal, of course, etc., and the carb content of that. I never had a problem about eating meat ever. I was never morally opposed to it or anything like that. In fact, I was quite the avid hunter when I was a younger man. Like 10 or 15 years. I hunted ducks and pheasants and used to eat them, regularly. And fishing was a great pastime of mine one time, and I used to eat what fish I would catch, etc. So, like the carnivore side of things was not a difficulty, a moral difficulty for me at least, or ethical difficulty. But notwithstanding that, I was faced with the situation where I had to try to discover why was I 110 kilos. It takes another person actually sometimes to bring one to one's senses. And in this case, it was my doctor who brought me to my senses by announcing that I had to lose, a considerable amount of weight to be considered physically normal, at least, anyway. So, notwithstanding that, um, I pursued the sugar avenue and I checked the glycemic index for different foods.
Sorry, just to jump in, what was it that made you focus on sugar away from, say, just the eating less?
Very good question. And it's something that it's a question that I haven't really thought about. I will say that it was an avenue. Um, it did occur to me from my preliminary investigations into sugar content in food that carbohydrates translate in the digestive system into glycogens and glucose and other sugar derivatives, which in fact drive insulin. So that drove me to an investigation of insulin resistance. So net result of which creates fat in the body, insulin resistance. So I had driven my insulin to some extent higher than normal, and I had driven myself to a condition of insulin resistance, I believe. None of this was medically announced to me, and I didn't undergo any medical tests. But there had to be some reason or explanation as to why I put on so much weight in a short time. Uh, Now, the anecdotal evidence was like family and friends would say to me, "Oh, your grandfather was a very heavy man, or your grandmother was overweight," and lots of members of your family were fat, or are fat. So it wasn't really a good enough explanation for me, Dave, because to be honest with you, I like to do my own thing and to make my own life as freely as I can as possible without offending anybody, of course, but notwithstanding that. So the quest was on as to figure out why was I overweight so much and what was I going to do about it. So I'm here at the moment at the point of insulin resistance. Well, there's a lot of material on YouTube, and one can even get a lot on Google about insulin resistance and the causes of it. A breakthrough came to me from actually from YouTube, 2019 or thereabouts, uh, when I discovered that one YouTuber, recommended that you fasting breaks the cycle of insulin. And I did notice, Dave, that I was snacking quite a bit during the day, like 4 or 5 times a day I would eat, And I said, well, if that's the case, then I'm spiking my insulin 5 times a day. So I decided to cut it out, and I went on this 16 8 or yeah, 16, is it 16 8 eating regime? Yeah, eat for 8 hours in the day and fast for 16. And it seemed to make a difference on the weighing scales. I lost my 5 kilos and maybe a couple more. And like I was plateauing in around 7 or 8 kilos down on, so it was 102 kilos, which, I wasn't really proud of either. But notwithstanding that, uh, it brought me back to somewhere in the range of normality. The reflux was gone, the acid reflux. I didn't notice the sleep apnea, snoring anymore. That was waking me, actually. It was waking me. It was so bad at its height. And the upshot of it was I decided to follow on that path for a bit and combat insulin resistance. So I decided to do a little bit of fasting also, as well as the 618 or the 18-6 eating, one meal a day or one period of eating per day, which I eventually did reduce to one meal a day. Uh, and the weight just kind of kept falling off. And within 4 months, I was down 20 kilos, which uh, to our friends in the United States would be probably 45 or 46 pounds in 4 months, which for me was like shocking. It was equally shocking that I had gained so much weight, but it was shocking that to have lost 46 pounds in 4 months, just by controlling my appetite. A little bit of self-control. In life, we have these situations where self-control can really be the elixir and the remedy for a lot of things. And it had never occurred to me that self-control of appetite would have given me such benefit. So my energy was back. I noticed it after COVID when we went back to work. We were locked down for 4 months, whatever. And when I went back to work in April 2021, this is around the time that I had lost those 46 pounds. Uh, my work colleagues didn't recognize me. The first day I came back to work, like they saw me in the distance walking to the office, whatever. They didn't know who I was. My body shape had changed completely. I obviously maybe I would walk faster or had more energy, but I looked like a different person to them until I came close and I spoke whatever to them, and they were very curious, some of them, as to what the solution to being overweight was. Now, here I was eating one meal a day, mixed meal. I was eating carbohydrates and meat and eggs and butter and dairy and everything and cheese and everything like that. But it was like I was down to one meal a day most of the time. And I seem to plateau there at that because I was eating vegetables also. I was eating cruciferous vegetables and boiled, you name it, the vegetables and the fruit. I didn't eat bread. I cut the bread completely at that stage. That was part of my sort of journey of control, if you like. And I was never as I said, I was never a big sugar fan. But here I was on one meal a day, eating a mixed diet, but at one meal time per day. So I was 88 kilos, uh, Dave, and I continued on that path for about a year. Uh, Happy to be down 20 kilos or 22 kilos, happy to have lost that weight. But at the same time, I was still a little bit of a chubby guy. And it dawned slowly on me from photographs, etc. So who's this guy? Oh, that's me. Wow, I'm a little bit fat there, I think. I mean, body conscious and self-conscious may not be a thing for a person at my age. I don't know, but it just was, and that's a situation that I had to face. So I was watching myself though, I must say. I was a little bit more attentive to my weight than I would normally have been in the past. And notwithstanding that, um, I looked around again at the end of 2022, and some influential vloggers and uh, YouTube bloggers caught my attention. And I can trot out the usual names that we've heard many times on your channel here, Dave. But a couple of them stuck to me, stuck in my mind. And this is how I found Zero Carb, also your channel, Dave, was around this time at the start of 2023. Now, it's nice to fall asleep listening to someone tell us how to control our diet and, reduce carbs and etc. But what really caught my attention is were those people who focused exclusively on carnivore. And I said, like, this stuff is extreme, man. What are these people on, So, we had the Jordan Peterson, Michaela Peterson interviews. Michaela Peterson, who had a severe medical conditions, much worse than I, who basically advised that carnivore was the way that she overcame it, strict carnivore at that, and others. And I came across your channel also, Dave, at the start of this year, which was very influential actually for me for the reason, and I won't dwell on it, but for the reason is you're a clear communicator, and I can listen to you for a long time when you do speak. um, the influencers made me think a little bit. And I decided after a while that I would take a chance. What harm could it do just to eat meat, eggs, dairy, cheese, and fish? Those five things with water and salt, of course. Um, so I did that, Dave, for a month. For the first 2 weeks, I was fine. I could manage it. I was one meal a day still, eating meat, eating dairy with that, etc., as I described, eggs with that, etc. One meal a day. Dave, I was as sick as a dog after a week. I had to stop. I had to go back. I had to go back to eating a mixed diet. Uh, I had a kind of a flu. I couldn't believe it because I had already heard of the keto flu or the carnivore flu that, oh, you're going to get the carnivore flu. I said, that has to be nonsense. That can't be real. But I did get the carnivore flu. And it was like a flu-like symptoms. And I had that. And I thought it was the flu, but apparently it was the carnivore flu. Maybe it was really the flu. But notwithstanding that, started this year in March, had the carnivore flu for about a week and a half. But when it subsided, I went back to eating pure meat, eggs, dairy, salt, water, and fish. That was it on one meal a day, and I stayed with it for 2 months until I noticed something. I noticed that I had lost 10 more kilos in 2 months. That's like a rapid, like I'm going like, that's 22 pounds, 24 pounds. I'd lost 24 pounds in 2 months. I said, like, what's going on here? So, like, I'm down to 78 kilos, I think, or 80 kilos, 79 kilos. What's going on here? You know, this can't be right. But something, Dave, I did need it. I was still a little bit overweight. As I said earlier, I could see in my photographs my little brown belly and my little, little. I looked almost pregnant, if that were possible. But notwithstanding that, I'd lost another 10 kilos. And after 2 months, Dave, and I did no exercise. I wasn't back in a gym. I didn't. I have a bike. I still use it. I still go for a cycle. I go for a trip every now and again, but nothing excessive. And I sort of one day in a photograph, because we take a lot of photographs now with our camera and friends, etc. And wow, what happened to me? I kind of look fit. I noticed that I started putting on a bit of muscle, on my legs. And said, well, what's this? Where did this come from? So I was tweaked by that and putting on muscle in my legs. What? So, notwithstanding that, I investigated exercise again um, whilst on the carnivore diet. What is there an advantage to exercising whilst on the carnivore diet, one meal a day, eating a lot of meat, but eggs, etc. And some of the answers came back. Well, you don't really need to. You're going to be better anywhere, physically better anyway, notwithstanding. But I decided to try calisthenics. Calisthenics? Is that the way you pronounce it? I decided to try and commence again. Um, some push-ups, uh, some sit-ups, some handstands. Upside down. Handstand, stand on your hands, stuff. Uh, a little bit of running, nothing serious. And this was back in April, May of this year. And when I made that decision. And Dave, I'm kind of ripped. I became kind of ripped a little bit, if I can say that without sounding so, like I'm aggrandizing myself. I put on muscle, Dave, in places I didn't think I could ever put on muscle at age 66. You know, and I mean, is a 66-year-old supposed to put on muscle? I did anyway, and I became more fit. Of course, obviously, the exercise is going to make one fit in a normally. But I became more fit. I put on muscle. Um, I won't say I'm Tarzan by any means, but perhaps I'm sort of somewhere towards James Bond. Possibly Daniel Craig, maybe. But yes, I did. I did.
I was going to ask you, Daniel Craig or Sean Connery?
Well, probably more like Sean Connery. I think Sean Connery was a kind of a supreme athlete when he was a younger man, also, I think. Yeah. But yeah. Um, so my weight today, this morning on the same bathroom scales is 78 kilos. And that's how I came to arrive at a carnivore lifestyle. And I prefer to say lifestyle rather than a carnivore diet because the diet days are over and the lifestyle is here.
So you went from 110, which is about 242
Yeah,
pounds,
242, I think. Yeah.
down. Wow, that's awesome. Um,
Dave, did I ever think I would need to do that in my life? No.
Hmm.
I mean, to lose that amount of weight, did I think I need it? And I'm not a thin guy. I'm not skinny, if you know what I mean. I suppose because I put on a few pounds of muscle, etc. as well, but I'm not skinny by any means. So it tells me a couple of things. Well, it's certainly the first thing it tells me is I was blind to my own bad health and my own physical condition for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, when I was in that situation. The thing that shocked me, the two things that shocked me were the acid reflux at night and the sleep apnea. Um, I was otherwise still able to move around and do my everyday stuff. People didn't tell me. No one reminded me, hey man, you're putting on a bit of weight there. You'd better watch yourself, or you should really. Until I went to the doctor who told me, and doctor's advice can be sometimes somewhat bland. And but I took it away, her words, and I analyzed them. I applied them to myself. People tell you the thing about advice, Dave, as you know, is you get a lot of advice from a lot of different quarters, and you can become overburdened with so much like what we consider advice or free advice if you want. But some advice, especially concerning your health, and especially from a medical professional, ought to be at least considered seriously. Whether it's accepted or rejected is another question, but in this case, I considered my doctor's advice seriously. She was right. I was 110 kilos. Um, I did check my weight, Dave. There are some scales that one can use online. measurement scales. So what can be measured can be managed, as they say. And I went and I looked at a couple of them, and I looked at my height weight ratio and my BMI. Now I can't remember exactly the figures, but it was way out of whack compared to what I actually was. I mean, I was way out of whack compared to what the standard human of my age and condition should have been. I was way over. That's the first thing that shocked me. And the second thing that I noticed as well is there's another scale called the body fat index, and it's online. And I've used that, and I've used it recently. And I can tell you where I'm going with this. I have to lose another 7 kilos, and that's the bottom line where I'm going with this. But the body fat index is the United States Navy calculator. It's free online, and one can enter one's details and measurements, and it will kind of tell a person where they, a man or woman, what their weight is. Sorry, what their body fat content is. At present, my body fat content is 17.5%, according to that calculator. And I've no reason to think that it's terribly inaccurate. So it sort of suggests to me that I need to lose another 6 or 7 kilos to get to a 13. 13 would be the ideal for me. And that would bring me to 70, about 70 kilos. So if my weight, generally speaking, is 70 kilos, taking muscle and, normal body weight into account, then I'm happy to look at that. But if I had seen that 4 years ago, that from when I was 110 kilos, that I really should be 70 kilos. That's 40 kilos. That's like 88, that's 90 pounds of a difference in weight, in body weight. Isn't that something? I mean, I know there are plenty of our friends out there in YouTube land who have, achieved far, far bigger and better, if you like, even weight loss than that. But my story is that's my story. If I thought I had to lose 90 pounds to be a normal body type weight, and therefore, apropos, uh, healthy, physically healthy, I would have been shocked.
Do you think that had it been framed that way from the start, like, Pat, you got to lose 40 or 50 kilos at, 80, 90 pounds, um, or there's going to be trouble, or 80 to 100 pounds, or there's going to be trouble. Do you think feeling like the hurdle was so big would have actually been demotivating?
In life, we do a lot of things, Dave, when we get to this age, and a barrier like a huge hurdle, having crossed several of them in the course of one's life already, and I know that you have also, Dave. I don't think so, is the short answer to your question. However, it raises another very interesting point, in that the way that the information was delivered to me was like a friendly chat. And the tone of the information was like in a friendly tone. Of course, professional person will always be like that. But notwithstanding that, if my doctor had wagged her finger, get this finger going here, at me and said, "Now, listen to me. If you don't do this, you may not see, a certain age. You may not see age 66, which I am now. You may not see, because of this condition that you have, you're going to get, high blood pressure, dementia, Alzheimer's, the usual, like we call them, the big four modern diseases. You're going to get those in spades, and you'll end your life, in a very bad way. You'll be in care. Uh, you're going to have to make your choice as to what way you want to end your life, because you're not going to live forever. If it was given to me, Dave, in a black and white warning to mend my way or else, I think I would have been much more motivated at the start. But that's only me. That's what I need to be spoken to like that. Some people can take the sugar, well, excuse the phrase, the sugar coated version, but I would have to have it on the nail, black and white. Yes, tell me the truth, doctor. How long more do I have? I need that.
Got it. So, how are you eating now? Are you still doing OMAD?
Okay, great question. I'm still doing carnivore. I'm breaking up my eggs. Breaking my eggs. I'm having my eggs first, and about 2 hours later, I'm having my meat, my beef actually, when I can. But I'm not averse to lamb. But I believe from my research that beef is the best nutrition of all. And anecdotally, I have found for me that beef is the best nutrition. It digests, it's completely digested, in my own opinion, in a couple of hours, within 2 hours in the digestive system, and therefore absorbed. Now, one can research, and I was never a biologist or I was never a medical person to retain the verbiage or the language of biology or medicine, but the nutrient content in beef for the human being, for the human stomach, is the most nutritious of all. This is what I believe. So, we do have, obviously other forms of nutrition, but I mean, if one wants to go get the best out there, a beef is the one, in my opinion. Even much better than eggs, even. But I mean, I eat the eggs as a variety. It's the kind of starter. At this stage, I'm getting hungry now thinking about it.
You're kind of separating them into two meals.
I'm separating
What's
them
what's the
into
window?
two
2 hours
hours.
apart.
Yeah.
And then, so that's reasonably early on. So then you just don't eat anything for the rest of the day.
I like to get my meal finished before 2 o'clock in the daytime if possible. So it's 12 and 2 usually. That would be normally my time. Yeah. I'm looking at other forms of nutrition. Now I haven't gone down the road of it at all, really. But I'm looking at other forms. I've done very well on the carnivore. Hats off to those people like yourself that influenced me, whose advice I took on board. Uh, but I'm looking at other forms of nutrition. What else can improve, even on top of the already improvements that I have made? If there's anything out there that can even do better than that, I'm open to that question because my progress to carnivore has been a kind of a step by step, as I've outlined earlier, progression. And I wonder, is there something beyond carnivore that's even better for carnivore and fasting? Though I must say, benefited me greatly. But is there something beyond that? I'm a firm believer in you can't really eat more to get thinner if that's what you want to do. But notwithstanding that, maybe there's something there. So what I have started to look at, and I haven't taken it too seriously, but I've started to look at fermenting, fermented dairy, kefir, and possibly some fermented vegetables of some nature, which I haven't really looked at. But I can see that it's easy to do if one wants to do that at home, rather than buy store-bought fermented items. And not to take them, it looks like not to take them like one traditionally would take vegetables, like a third of the plate is full of greens and the other third is full of something red, and then you have your meat on the third. Uh, Rather than do that, uh, just to use them as a garnish, so like a tablespoon or a teaspoon even, that's all per meal. And maybe they add something extra to the health mix that can rocket propel us into the next decade as humans, as we age. So that's what I've done, but that's where I'm at the moment. Thanks in big part to you and your channel, actually.
So thank you. So how are you feeling now? Well, actually, let's go back to something you said before.
Yeah.
So one of the things you said before was you alluded to the fact that as you're getting older, you just start getting more things going wrong. You start
Mhm.
getting sicker as you're getting older. And it's very interesting because we seem to have been almost trained into this mindset of, well, we're just getting older, so it's normal.
Mm.
And I just wonder now that you are doing carnivore, you've been doing carnivore for a relatively extended period of time. Um, how how are you feeling about that kind of thing now, like getting sick, or how are you feeling about the future?
Yeah, great question, Dave. In my opinion, the Western world has been frightened into the arms of the medical profession via the insurance companies. Uh, look around at a lot of countries. They're very, very over the certain age. They're very, very worried about the future, about their health, and they're willing to pay any money to an insurance company to at least maybe stave off the possibility of chronic disease at a later stage in life. I grew up in Ireland in the 1960s and 70s, and people, old people didn't have medical insurance. It was not never heard of. And when they died, there was a funeral, and that was it. Are we so special that we're going to, as a as a species, are we so special that we can avoid death? It's something that has to be reckoned with. The only thing about it is, we can do something about it now. We're not helpless captives. Uh, we can try, we can try to do something about our condition. Dave, my life has taken a radical turn in the last 2 years. Not just because I lost so much weight and I ate so much more healthily. That was a radical actual twist for me in my life in my early mid 60s. But I moved to a different country to live. I've been living here in Morocco for the last 2 years from Ireland. And I'm making plans, Dave, like I mean, I've retired a couple of times already, you know? So where am I going to go? Am I going to retire a third time? No, I'm going back into life. I'm going back in there kicking. I met a woman here. I didn't have a girlfriend for many, many years, and I met a woman here, and we're making plans together, And I've also opened my own, I'm starting a new business again, and I've started many businesses in my life. But I'm starting a new business here also again, a new financial adventure here, which isn't really about finance. It's more about service, actually. When you get older, you become more conscious of giving service rather than receiving reward. And I did find also that reward is almost automatic when you give good service. So that's a little lesson for anyone out there who's interested in that. But I started a new life, and I may not live on in Morocco as a country of residence. I may move to a different country. We may both move to a different country in the future. So, what I'd say there is that when you think you're done, you're not done. So don't ever think that you're done. And you won't be unhealthy in the future. And I've had old friends in the past as a younger man, as a young man even. My friends were old usually who were widows or normally, or not divorced, but living alone who had never married. I had one very old friend who was never married. Another couple of old men friends who were married and widowed, and they told me wonderful things. And they said to me one thing I remember. It stuck in my head. One friend said to me, he said, "Pat, if you live to 60 without any, this is when I was about 45. If you live to 60 without any medical complications, you'll probably get another 20 years out of it. Well, I'm planning as much as I can take effect to put into effect reasons to double that number and live for another 40 years after age 60. My father wasn't a drinker. He didn't smoke. He didn't eat a very high-end diet and was not a sugar addict. He didn't. I don't ever remember him eating sugar, actually. He was 94, 93 when he died, almost 94, within 2 weeks. So, you know, he did go down slowly for the last 3 months. That's the thing. And I think that our objective really is we go to the last and we won't go down slowly, but when we go down, we'll go suddenly, but we'll go healthily. That's that's my philosophy and my view about longevity and health.
Yeah. Nice. Well said. Um, so you talked about Morocco.
Yes.
Um, how are the meat prices over there? How easy is it to get the meat that you like?
Well, you can forget about grass-fed, grass-finished beef. Being said, while it would be my chosen option if I were back in Ireland, for example, to have that, and it's possible to get that there. This is a dry country. It's really on the in the Sahara Desert, actually. Uh, the cities are built on the coast, but the country itself is in the desert, and the possibility of grass-fed, grass-finished beef is difficult in the extreme. So they do finish with grain, and they do feed animals with grain. But that being said, the beef that I get, and I'll talk about the price in a second, the beef that I get, I've still thrived on it. You know, so for anyone that's sort of not going to do carnivore because they can't get grass finished, grass raised beef, go for it anyway. Uh, and you'll still get a lot of benefit from grain fed. It's better than the alternative, which is, go back to possibly toxins in mycotoxins in vegetables and chemicals in vegetables. Um, the prices here. I can speak a little in US dollars. So a kilo of ground beef, which is what I would normally use. A kilo of ground beef is about, say, 10, it's about $10 for a kilo, which is 2.2 pounds. So $5 for a kilo of ground beef is the price here. Chicken is pretty cheap if you want to go down market a little bit on the meat side. It's okay occasionally. I don't usually eat much poultry. Eggs are $5 for 30 eggs, which I can get here in the local shop. If I go to the supermarket, it's more. Uh, Dairy is about $1 for a liter, approximately. Milk is $1 for a liter of milk. And salt is salt. I mean, I use Himalayan pink salt most of the time, and it's quite expensive. It's about $7 for a can or whatever for a shaker of Himalayan salt. But I can get a long time out of that, so it's pretty good value. So yeah, overall, I think prices meat wise are pretty good in Morocco compared globally. I was in Argentina, Dave. I never mentioned this to you earlier. I was in Argentina in Buenos Aires for July this year. And one of the great reasons I went to Argentina, believe it or not, was for the meat because it's a famous country for meat. And I had a wonderful time. And I was able to buy meat eventually there when I found my way around. And I could buy meat for like $4 a kilo, which is $2 per pound approximately for asado, which is like side beef, side meat. Yeah, and cook it myself in my own place. I had my own apartment there, so I was able to cook there for myself. But it was great. I just ate meat every day for all the time that I was there. It was super. But Dave, I had a little story to tell you. I met a man there. He was staying in the same hotel as me, and we got friendly. And he told me his age, and he was like 3 years younger than me. And he told me about his medical conditions, Dave. He had diabetes, he had high blood pressure, he had brain fog, uh, and several other, uh, you know, not great disease. He used to see me in the mornings going out for a run. I'd go out for a jog in the morning or come back into after 10 minutes covered in, perspiration, whatever. I'm going for a shower. And we talked. And he said, eventually, and I didn't tell him about my diet, but I did wait for him to ask me, which, is a way to evangelize people. Don't put it on them. Let them ask you. So eventually, after 3 or 4 days, he asked me. I'd asked him about his medical conditions. He went around the world with a bag of pills, Dave, a bag of medication. Can you not have so much medication? He told me, if I don't take them, I'll die. And maybe he was right, because he had managed to paint himself into this corner. Eventually, he asked me about my diet. And I said, I just have one meal a day. He said, what? What about your breakfast? Well, I said, I don't really bother with that. At this time in Buenos Aires, I was eating one meal. I didn't bother with eggs at that time. I just had the meat because it was so good, you know, and really it was grass fed. And, I told him that I ate one meal a day about 12 or 1 o'clock in the daytime. And he was astounded with that. He said, don't you feel hungry? I said, just eat plenty. He said, what do you eat? What do you, I said, I just eat meat. I just eat beef. A jaw drop moment, a mic drop moment. And he was astounded at that. I think the point of that story is if we want to evangelize, spread the message, let the results speak for themselves before we speak about the reasons for the results. And it was a great little learner for me, learner LE, for me to break the news to that man. And I hope he took it on board. I never followed up with him actually, but I hope he did. That he took my lifestyle. He says, "What type of medication do you take?" I don't. I got some news for you. I don't take medication at all. I've never taken it actually, but I don't need it. So how come you're so, how come you're so fit? How come you're so healthy? How come and of course, as I explained, I gave him the news, then the good news about the carnivore diet and healthier living and lifestyle. And and I'm saying the same to anybody who can maybe tune into our broadcast today. That they've just got to grasp it. It seems like a nutcase idea. To me, I thought the Petersons of these people, I thought they were a bit, strange. But notwithstanding that, when I followed it myself, the results, not alone had I become healthy with a low carb diet, keto, but when I cut out carbs completely, my energy increased, my weight dropped another 10 kilos, about my brain clarity, my brain, my thought, my energy, everything just improved again on top of that. So as I said earlier, I'm just wondering, is there another level to this that one can take through nutrition to achieve an even better way of feeling healthy? But yeah, it's great. And thanks again, Dave.
So, Pat, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your journey. I really appreciate it.
You're more than welcome. It's my pleasure.